It's a kitchen that smells like a kitchen. You walk in, there's stocks going, there's pastry, they're doing their things, it smells like sugar and butter. Like, it smells like what you want a kitchen to smell like, whereas a lot of kitchens now, they have no smell. Or
they're sanitary, or they smell like bad fish.
Yeah, so that was a really awesome place. I will always remember just like watching the guy in Garde Manger just go down on oysters.
You're listening to the Taste Podcast. I'm Editor-in-Chief Matt Rodbard, here with Senior Editor Anna Hezel.
On today's show, we have Akira Akuto of LA's Konbi. You have probably seen their egg sandwich on Instagram at some point. Later, we'll be talking to Taste contributor Max Falkowitz about sea urchin. But first, Matt, what did you and Akira talk about?
Yes, Anna, we talk about the sandwich, but guess what? There is much more to this story than a fucking sandwich.
They're doing a lot of other cool things at Konbi, and great pastries, too.
Oh, for sure. But let's talk about Akira first. Akira is an interesting cat. He went to Columbia University, graduated, but then he was like, I don't want to be a blah, blah, blah business guy, blah, blah, blah. He ended up working at Momofuku and Franny's on the line, and then eventually moved to Los Angeles where he opened Konbi.
And then he became famous for making egg sandwiches.
Back to the sandwich. He also makes actually an eggplant katsu, which is not an egg sandwich, and it's pretty delicious. But I love this conversation because we talk about opening a restaurant in LA and what it takes to open a high-concept restaurant. Akira does a cool job of opening the books and talks about things like investors and real estate and what it takes to actually make money. It's really revealing, and you should listen to it because you probably won't want to open a restaurant after you're listening to it.
Here's Matt talking to Akira.
Akira Akuto, welcome to the Taste Podcast.
How are you, Matt?
I'm great. We're in LA. How about that?
It's raining this week. It's really weird.
One of those weird weeks.
It's great. It's great for us East Coasters to experience the rain.
Okay, so Konbi is your restaurant, and just like, let's talk about the egg sandwich. Dude, that is everywhere on Instagram. What's up with that?
I don't know. It's.
Do you know?
It's not the one that we thought would be popular. It's the one that we thought would be the throwaway. So we were very wrong.
Explain what it is first. What is the egg sandwich?
It's an egg salad sandwich. Basically, you just take some hard-boiled eggs. You mix it with this dressing that we have made. You fold it together, and then we have a soft-boiled egg that goes in the middle of that. So it's basically one soft-boiled egg cut in half. Goes in the middle of that. But
this is a tribute or an homage to the Japanese convenience store egg sandwich that you would find at Lawson's or 7-Eleven. Is that correct?
This one is specific to the Lawson's. Okay. Yeah, we saw it last trip, and it was awesome. So we thought we would do something that's similar to that.
So tell me, what are people like? Where's it being like written about, and like why? Why has it gone viral? I mean, I'm just gonna say it. It's gone viral. It's gone viral.
I don't know. I think Instagram. It's visually appealing. I guess I don't think it's anything different. Like it's an egg salad sandwich. At the end of the day, if you bite into it blindfolded, it tastes like an egg salad sandwich. It's seasoned well. Yeah. I think I mean, we put a lot of thought into it. Not when we initially put it on the menu. We just thought, hey, we need something that's going to relieve the hot sandwiches. It was just me and Nick. So I was concerned about logistics of service, and we'd cooked long enough where we didn't want to be stupid. So we tried to prepare for what could happen if we were busy. And we just thought,
scoop and put on bread.
And we thought, okay, we'll have it like ready, already made, like, and all we have to do is slice it. So it'll really alleviate all the problems. But we found trying to do that, the bread dries out a little, so we can't really actually do that. We tried several different ways to just even have it like ready to just slice, and it wouldn't work. So we make them to order, and it's even more pain in the ass. But
what's the mayonnaise component in this?
It's Kewpie. It's
Heard of it?
Subscribe
to it.
Very, very delicious Japanese mayonnaise.
Great graphic design. Like really good graphic design.
Yeah. There's nothing more than, it's basically a umami bomb.
So it's not like a Hellman's. It's not a Duke's. It doesn't have that lemony flavor. It has a slightly... So explain what Kewpie is. Kewpie.
Kupi is just a Japanese mayo. It's slightly sweeter, and it has MSG in it. So
Yeah, a fuckload, which is awesome.
yeah, it's delicious.
It's a delicious mayonnaise. It's funny, we just talked a lot about one sandwich, but clearly Kombi is more than just a one sandwich shop. You describe it as a Japanese sandwich shop that makes French pastries and vegetable dishes. So what is the connection between all of this? Japanese sandwiches, French pastries, and vegetable dishes?
I would say the French pastries and the Japanese sandwiches go together. You'll see a lot of French pastries in Tokyo and all around Japan. Found that like the Japanese really appreciate French food, and a lot of them have worked in France as sous chefs at very high-end restaurants or baked at very high-end patisseries, and then come back and just kind of taken that to another level. A lot of the French food there is on par with the stuff you'll find over in France.
Let's talk about that a little bit. You travel to Japan often. And
I try to go as much as possible.
And your family's from Japan?
Yeah, my dad's side is from Japan, so I grew up there till we were about 5.5, 6. Then we moved to the States for my dad's work, and then I grew up in Connecticut. So,
but the bakery's there. It's like the shokunin, they call it, right? The single topic restaurants.
Yeah, people in Japan especially will just devote their whole life to one thing. So it could be baking, not even like French pastry. It'll be like, I just make cannelé. That's all I do. And you're like, that's crazy, but I can see why this is perfect. And then, when you go eat there, like the restaurants are smaller, so you can figure out how to do something at that level for 6 to 8, 10 people. It makes sense. If you're trying to do a restaurant for 100 people, it's impossible. So
I asked that question because when you were launching Kombi, your cannelé game on Instagram was pretty crazy. I think I was out here with you when you were testing. You tested for a year, probably, right?
I tested for many months, secretly.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to embarrass myself.
There were some really ugly ones.
Yeah. I got a lot of help from friends who've made a lot of cannelés for famous people who had a lot of tips and help. But it was mostly like, if anyone wants to make cannelé, because it's on trend now, you just have to suffer a lot at your house, and then when you move the recipe to the restaurant, it's completely different with an oven. That's totally different. So
what makes a really great cannelé?
I think you have to have the crispy crust, obviously, but not burned. So there's a fine line between caramelized and then burned. So that's tricky. And then you want the interior to be custard-like, but not mushy. You want to have structure still. So
it's
when
like
you cut
the
it open,
cannelé filling is its own thing. Like
Totally.
It's hard to describe.
And like you shouldn't have both together, but
No.
you can achieve it, and it's awesome.
And that shape too.
The shape you gotta just get the expensive mold from France.
Yeah.
The copper mold. You just gotta do it. If you're gonna do it, just buy the expensive molds.
Yeah.
Don't do silicone. And there's other stuff that you can go into, but you have to rest the batter for 48 hours or more.
That's the key.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's the new issue of Toothache goes into a huge detailed research and kind of like all the different methods.
Yo, Toothache?
Yeah.
Yeah, hit me to that. I don't know Toothache.
Toothache's a magazine that the old pastry chef from Kwa,
Yeah.
Matthew Tinder,
Cool.
he has a bakery up near Seattle. So he launched this magazine, basically profiles pastries and then other things. But in the latest issue, they have a whole spread on cannelé. And
Shout out to that new magazine that I don't know about. I feel like
you should get it. It's good.
I'm gonna order it.
Yeah.
Akira, how did you start your journey in cooking? Like, how did you get into this game?
I was in college in New York, and
Like culinary school?
no, I went to a real college.
You went to a real university, a four-year university?
I went to university.
Was there an athletic team?
They had a team.
Okay.
They're not good at anything but archery and fencing.
Okay.
And rowing. It's a very preppy
Is this
place.
Columbia or NYU?
It's Columbia.
Columbia.
I just didn't really understand what I wanted to do at school. I didn't really understand, like, you got to spend 2 years focusing on a topic, and I wasn't very good at that. So I found myself eating out a lot at restaurants, and cooking was starting very starting, like early on, starting to look cool. It's definitely not cool.
What year are we talking about? Give us a little context.
2002, 3.
We're like Bobo.
Early.
This is like Bob.
Yeah,
Bobo's the
yeah.
shit.
Definitely.
He did come out.
Yo.
Yeah, Bourdain.
It was early. I went to a lot of good restaurants, and I got the impression that I wanted to be able to eat well. Not cook, just like be able to eat well. And cooking looked like a good way to like impress someone. So somehow I convinced myself that if I went to cooking school on the weekends and I went down the investment banking path, I'd be able to cook for people and impress them.
Investment banker.
But I really didn't like investment banking. So that was a terrible summer. And I didn't do anything with cooking for a while. And then I moved to California after my parents had moved out here. So I hung out with them and they were just like, you need to do something. Like you can't just sit at the house. So
Let's go back to the moment you're dining out as a college kid with like the focus of eating good food. Where were you going? I mean, where were some of the places that were inspired you back in 02, 03, 04?
I remember we went to Le Bernardin once for a friend got a really great job at Microsoft, so we celebrated there. But that was like the first really nice meal. Otherwise, it was still like going to like good bagel shops, figuring out what was good. Like we had Absolute Bagels up there; it was very good, and like lots of pizza, just like eating all around the pizza. And then like the Upper West Side, there wasn't really anything great.
Hey, still that way.
Still that way.
2019.
Barney Greengrass was good. Like all those places were still solid, but nothing was like.
Shout out to Barney Greengrass.
Yeah,
sure.
Nothing was really great. But I went to Lupa a lot. Just kind of eating simple pasta dishes.
Lupo kind of was a game changer for pasta in New York. I feel like. And that was Mark Ladner there at the time?
He was at the time.
Mark Ladner, of Del Posto.
He's a genius.
Now a pasta flyer, truly one of America's great pasta cooks.
Oh, I mean, he's the best. I think he knows so much about Italian food in general. And the way Lupa ran, and if you see the kitchen, it doesn't make any sense how they can put out the amount of food they do out of that. But that was one of the most consistent kind of great meals I would have. That was at the time affordable. And I went to Gramercy Tavern a few times with my parents, just like to celebrate. And the hospitality was just eye-opening. I'd never seen anything like Gramercy Tavern in the fall and winter. And it really just like stuck in my mind as like, this is the type of restaurant that I associate with New York. Like festive, really warm. It's good for going with your parents, going on a date. Like it covers all the bases, and they just handle it.
A real celebration.
Yeah, they just they anticipate your needs. They somehow magically hear and think through like what you might order, but you don't order, and then it just shows up. Like you don't have to be in the industry. They still take care of you, and it was wild to see like there's free stuff coming to you. You don't work in restaurants, and now you see it like after working in the industry, you're like that's normal for like people who work in restaurants. But to do that to people who are just normal people, it's really remarkable that they can sustain a business and create something that works.
So you decided at some point after this terrible summer in iBanking that you wanted to do this for your career. What did your parents say when you said you wanted to be a chef?
My parents, no, they were definitely not into it. I mean, I spent 2 years in bio pre-med. So they were just like, this is not the path that you're supposed to be doing. And my friends from high school are very intelligent human beings and very successful. They just didn't understand what I was doing. And I didn't know anyone who cooked. So it was a really odd choice. So they couldn't wrap their head around it.
And this was like definitely before like the celebrity chef.
Yeah,
like
no,
Bourdain had been around.
Their issues were one, they're Asian, so it's not a respectable career, and two, they just didn't think you would have any family time. You're not going to make any money. You're going to be working all the time. You're never going to be able to have a home life. And I mean, I think they were right on that point, but I didn't really care. I don't listen to them about anything, so it was fine. But
par for the course. So where did you end up? So where did you end up going to school? Where did you end up staging and doing your externship, et cetera?
I went to the Institute of Culinary Education. I think
shout out ICE.
It used to be called Peter Kumps.
Oh yeah, right.
But now it's ICE, and now ICE has expanded. They bought Natural Gourmet Institute recently, so they are really, really growing. And I did my externship at Kraft in 2003. Yeah.
David Chang, was he working there?
No, he was before.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Tom Colicchio, obviously.
He was not even there.
Oh, no shit.
He was gone. Damon
Weiss.
Damon was around.
Damon Weiss.
He was not even. He was the executive sous chef. Okay. Yeah, it was another guy. I can't remember his name, who had been around for a while, and a really solid crew. And it was like, it's a kitchen that smells like a kitchen. You walk in, there's stocks going, there's pastry, they're doing their things, so it smells like sugar and butter. Like, it smells like what you want a kitchen to smell like, whereas a lot of kitchens now, they have no smell. Or
they're sanitary, or they smell like bad fish.
Yeah. So that was a really awesome place. I will always remember just like watching the guy in Garde Manger just go down on oysters every night. And then like my task was cutting stuff for the sauces. It was just like, oh, you're gonna cut a quart of red onion, like
what's in a
small dice, but like only the outer two layers. And then like same with the carrots, same with the celery. It would take me hours, and like the other people would be like, you should be able to do this in like 15 minutes and also do this. And I was like, I don't understand. Like, I can never do that. Like, it's taking me 2 hours to do these 3 things. How do you get to that point? And you know, it's a lot of work that goes into running that type of restaurant. And I think when you're in cooking school, you get like an inflated idea of what you're able to accomplish.
Or you go to some places with less caliber. I mean, Kraft at the time is like that's a 3 New York Times star restaurant.
Totally, but you know, if you don't go to that type of restaurant, I don't think you can acquire the skills you need early on in your life to go down that path of like. I started late. Like I started cooking at 24. So comparing that to like a 14 to 18-year-old who can absorb information at like a rapid rate, it was already late. So I needed to acquire as much information as I could.
So let's do like the Scorsese montage moment of the interview and like take us through like the cut to where you were working, because you worked in some cool places in New York.
I worked in some cool places. I actually didn't work in a lot of places for like the length of time you're supposed to work. I'm like pretty notoriously bad. So I have ADD with that stuff. And I was like, I'm late. I need to acquire as much skills as I can. And I can't be here for a year. So
you jumped around a bit.
I jumped around a bit. Most of the places I worked are like 6 to 11 months. Like,
where did you work?
But I worked for Zach Palacio at 5/9 when that was like a pirate ship and it was crazy. And then I moved to Franny's in 05 to 06. That was really, really awesome point in career for what Franny's was doing. Andrew was still cooking, and it was just, they had already gotten rid of pasta, so it was just focusing on pizza and salads and desserts, but like just panna cotta.
We'll talk about combi more, and definitely it seems like it was informed combi.
I think Franny's really made an impression in my whole life, just like how you approach cooking. I'd always loved Italian culture and food, but it was so clean for a pizza shop. Like you have to change your apron if you got a spot on it, and like you're making salads to order, and your stuff just your plus gets thrown away at the end of the night. Like you're just doing everything just for the day. You're breaking down your entire station to wipe it down. It's like, this is not a pizza shop. There's nothing casual about this place, but it looks casual. Everything about it looks casual. And then, you know, you're sitting down for family meal for an hour. Like, you know, he's really important to think through like what that meant at the time, which is like, you just like Kraft, you're just trying to eat. trying to eat while standing up. Like, that's what I know. And then he's like, you need to take an hour to think through what service is going to be like.
Who's he? Like, give him a shout out.
Andrew Feinberg was the owner and the chef, and very, very OCD. Like, he'd come in before you and just mark everywhere that you missed a spot cleaning with a Post-it note. And you're like, how early did you come in here? Like, there's only 4 of us. Like, I don't get it. Like, so it really, really taught me like about how to take things so seriously. And I just could never work like that.
So you end up in LA with Nick, your partner. I want to get to what you were doing. You guys are running a restaurant downtown Arts District. What do you consider?
Like
you have a history in
Nick and
LA.
I met in New York cooking together. He was at Mofuku Sambar, which I know is one of your favorite places. We've talked about this. It's known that Matt likes sambar.
Yeah, I do like
it's
sambar.
It's not shade. It's delicious.
It was on my best of list in 2009 for Eater. Or
it's
2008.
delicious.
I looked back.
I love sambar.
Yeah,
I liked eating there.
I am a sambar stan.
Yeah, I was working at Original Noodle Bar, and we hit it off. He was a young kid, but super talented, and just really fast. And he'd been cooking since he was 14, so he's well ahead of me. We went our separate ways for a while. He went to Chicago. I just traveled around, and then he ended up in LA like 4 years ago or 5 years ago, and just kind of was about to just help out with this restaurant. The old friend from New York, he kind of just reached out and said, "Hey, would you come help me out?" So I ended up out here. We were working on this restaurant called Oso. It didn't really work out.
Well, you got some cool press.
We got some good reviews.
I'll say like Besha Rodell, former critic at LA Weekly, wrote some really nice things about what you're doing there.
Very kind to us.
And she's a talent spotter. I love Besha's taste. So I knew you through mutual friends, but I read about your cooking and I was like, this is interesting stuff. So
we were doing some. I think it was very tasty food.
Yeah,
just
man.
No one was coming. So I mean, it was in a weird neighborhood. It was still a weird neighborhood. Now it's a Moroccan lounge, so it's like it's becoming a famous music venue. But it should have been a music venue. It had a stage in the dining room. So
yeah, I remember hearing about
it. Was fighting a lot of battles, but we got to play around with food that we thought tasted good. We got to know the local LA kind of like food scene, what works, what doesn't work. Kind of didn't just come in and tell people what to do. We just kind of like took it slow. Then we started doing pop-ups, and they were well received. And then eventually we started looking for spaces and raising money.
Which ended up being Combi. So tell me about the difference that you're kind of getting into this, like the difference between New York and LA. There's clearly a difference. Like you're landing on some things here.
I mean, the main difference is just the way people go about their day. I look at LA as a giant suburb. Really cool suburb. Like a suburb. I grew up in a suburb of Connecticut, but we didn't have cool food. But like LA has awesome food. It's just spread out and you have to drive everywhere. New York, you could go your whole life and never drive a car. And that dictates how you approach your whole day. Like you could go the whole day without walking here, except to your car, like that's completely weird to me.
Yeah. It's also very unhealthy.
Very unhealthy.
Jeez.
Like you have to drive to the gym or you have to drive to the hill to hike. Yeah. And like that concept to people who live in New York is very foreign. Yeah. And people who move here eventually come to love it. And you're like, oh, I'm going to go for a hike today. And like, that's just walking up a hill, but you have to do it because you're just driving around all the time. So I think that those are huge differences that come into play when you talk about why certain restaurants work here and certain types of food work here.
What about like the multicultural element of LA? I mean, LA is one of the most multicultural cities, and there's like Latino cultures like informs the food here so much. I mean, is it something? New York is obviously diverse as well, but here it's like much more like ingrained.
Yeah, I think it's just not. You don't have to seek it out. Like New York, you have to go to. Like, I want that type of Korean food. You got to go out to Flushing, or you got to go out to Jackson Heights for this. It's like, it's not far, but you still have to make the trek. Whereas here, it's like, you don't have to go far to get certain things. Like, that kind of stuff is just always around. And you need to understand, like, there's a value proposition that comes into play a lot more here when people go out to eat. Like they're just not wanting a fine dining restaurant. That does not work here. So you can't just open a restaurant that charges a certain price point. You will get run out of town unless you're a special chef. And most people aren't. And if you think you are, then it's very silly to open in LA. You should try to open in New York where that can be supported. There's no iBanking and bonus culture and consultant culture and people with just billions of dollars rolling around. Like you could do that on the West Side and be fine. But for the most part, you need to open a restaurant that provides somewhat of a value and is good food and you still get treated well and is open. The hours are also very different.
And let's talk about that. With Kombi, you're mostly an all-day cafe.
Yeah.
You're not a nighttime destination.
We are coming from New York, so for us, it's like we're used to working till 3, 4 in the morning and then going out. So we're older now, so we wanted to avoid that lifestyle. So we made it a point to open a breakfast lunch place. And it wasn't like we wanted to open in LA. It wasn't like, oh, we have to open in LA. It's just if you think through what you think is important in your life. I want to work-life balance. I want to have a breakfast, lunch, dinner so I can just have a life at night without having to go out to a bar or go out to another restaurant. LA made the most sense. Like Squirrel's here. There's other daytime places that people have successful businesses on. I can't think of any in New York that you're like, oh, that place sounds awesome. They sound like they're profitable and they're just doing breakfast, lunch. Like,
no, it doesn't work at all. And I think here, it seems like the dinner service in LA is like such a compressed, like 90-minute window. That's my perception. It's like
there's traffic dictates a lot of things here. So you need to expect your main crowd to be between 6:37 to 9 o'clock. Yeah. You can pretty much walk in any restaurant after 9 o'clock, which is really weird.
You're doing one turn for dinner, basically.
You can get the 5:30 to 7, like local crowd. Bestia gets a 5:30, 11:30, but they are an anomaly. That's not a normal thing. But you're relying on you can't rely on the 3 turns business models. You're trying to get as much business before 9 o'clock as possible. And
that's just a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure
to put on yourself when you have like a staff for dinner service and you prep for dinner and you only have that 90-minute, 2-hour window.
And like for me and Nick, like we just never owned a restaurant before. For us to assume that we're going to be able to draw that crowd was like very silly. So we're like, we'd rather take a much lower risk Echo Park spot that's small. We can do breakfast, lunch. If it fails, we'll turn it into whatever like we need to pay our investors back. Like it was our pitch was like, hey, like this might not work, but we will not lose your money. We'll turn it into a fried chicken shop if we have to, or a yogurt shop, or whatever is going to work and make money.
Are you going to do a 16 handles concept?
Whatever had to do, like we will do to pay our investors back. We don't want to do that.
But Kombi's working. Like, let's be real. Like, I mean, we talked about press, but you're doing like business. Like you're on.
Yes, we're doing well. We've made money since day one. We've designed it.
That's great.
So that our staff is paid very well, and that comes from we had the freedom to design a raw space. If you go into an existing space that's already laid out for you, it's much more difficult. We got fortunate. Our good friends from Civil Coffee passed on a space. They told us to look at it. So we looked at it. We demolished it. It was a barbershop. And we built it from the ground up. And we really thought through for a year or more, how can we design it with the laws are in place? Because 20% service charge doesn't seem to be working. If you can only tip, then back of the house, front of the house, you're still going to run into that same tension forever. And if you design a space and then try to retroactively fix that problem, you're screwed. So we thought, okay, well, there's a loophole where if you're involved in service, you can get tipped out. So let's design a space where everyone is involved in service.
Yeah,
it has to be small. And then how do we get that to work? And then how do we make the business work? So we were like, all right, well, we want a window anyway. Hopefully there's enough business coming out of the window because it's basically an infinite seat restaurant. And that's kind of what we thought through for a while. And then that's what Kombi became.
And then it became an egg salad sandwich restaurant.
Yeah, then now it's an egg salad sandwich restaurant with croissants. But
no, that's right. And let me ask you, where do you take this brand, Combi? It seems like you've got you got brand equity. You've got this really cool buzzy thing happening. Do you want to open more? Is that your goal?
That is our goal.
Cool.
We want to be smart about how we expand. We're not, we have offers to do stuff already, but we just say no. We're very good at saying no, and we have
very LA of you.
Very LA. It's not because we're cool. It's just we have very good investors who aren't concerned about making their money back on this project. They know if we can slowly grow, they'll make their money back at some point on a much bigger thing. So they're willing to invest time in us, and our operating agreement structured so they don't have say. So we can make those decisions. They're trusting us to make smart business decisions, but they're not in food. None of them are in food. So we can go to them and ask them business questions. And it's very helpful.
Oh, that's right. So they actually have a fresh set of eyes in the business.
Yeah, they're in much bigger businesses, and they can offer us answers to business questions. And if they don't know, they can ask someone else. So we're fortunate in that sense. And they're never pressuring us to, you need to build 50 of these. Like, if this one works and you're paying us back, fine. If you can grow it into a bigger 50 chain or 100 chain, cool. But don't burn it out quickly and then the whole thing crumbles. Build it out slowly.
And you like that approach? Is that working for you?
I've worked at companies that have grown slowly, and I've seen the lessons of what works. I've looked at Chipotle and all those businesses that they work for a time, and it's just like there's certain things that need to happen for a business to really grow huge, and you can't expect it to happen before 10 years. Like, it has to be this, like,
well, look at Momo.
At least 10 years.
Momo is at 10 years now.
10 years. I think what Dave did was smart. I think what Mike Solomanoff does is very intelligent. It's just building up enough talent to be able to expand and have an opening team that you rely on, instead of like, someone gave us $20 million. Let's just open 25 of these. Like, that's going to fail.
I mean, that's going to, people are going to knock on your door for that because of just the press and profile you guys have.
I hope so. I mean, I love money, but I don't know how to grow the business at that rate yet. So we will have to figure all that out in time. And we have advisors who are very good at that, so we can rely on them. But I know that you need to figure out a commissary model, and then you need to figure out the supply chain, and then you need to figure out real estate. And a lot of the successful people in restaurants are real estate deals. They're just like, the real estate makes sense, the lease makes sense. And that kind of stuff you don't learn when you're cooking. So that was a lot of the stuff we learned in the last 2-3 years, is just figuring out how to approach a lease. And that's a lot of our friends are asking us questions about that now.
That's cool that you're sharing that.
And we're open book about it. I think we want other talented chefs to open restaurants that are awesome so we can eat at them. But we try to give them honest advice about how to approach that. Don't think about the food. Don't think about what you want to make as a dish, because that could change in 2 years by the time you're built out. That could be completely different. Think about, does this lease make sense? Does the investors you're taking on, do they make sense? Are they going to pressure you to do things you don't want to do? Is the neighborhood feel right? All the other things that go into building a small company, we try to talk to people about.
You mentioned your peers in the industry here. You're part of this LA restaurant community. Let's shout out some of your favorites right now. Where are you going on these off days?
Dangerous.
I know.
Territory, Matt.
There's editing involved.
I haven't really had a lot of time lately.
Well, we're going to edit a lot of names you're going to say down to a few. So just know that there's going to be 100 names out. We're just going to get a few.
I mean, I don't really know that many people, but
okay, yeah.
Right.
You know every journalist in LA though,
right? I went out to lunch a couple of days ago actually, and I had an awesome lunch at my buddy Ari's wine bar, Hayden. It's seafood focused wine bar in Culver City. It's gone through a couple changes. It started off as a much bigger space. It's a lot more intimate now and a lot more focused. And I think this was the best meal I've had there in ever. and just like it's much more intimate cafe feel. And he's sourcing properly and just cooking really tasty food. And if you drink wine, then it's got a really great list. I don't drink wine, but the food I had was really awesome. I took one of the cooks with me, and he was really, really into it. And then I went to Wax Paper after that, and their new location in Chinatown is really weird and quirky.
What do they do?
They're a sandwich shop. I don't know how to describe what kind of sandwiches they make, but they name all their sandwiches after NPR hosts. I think it's cool. Their original location's in Frogtown, and I love Lauren and Peter. They're the sweetest.
They're big podcast fans. I'm just gonna.
They are podcast fans. Lauren went to high school with like a good friend of mine, Stephanie Prida. So that like it's a small world, and I think they're doing really cool stuff. That's cool. The new location is really weird, and you should go. They have specials at each one, so you know they figured that out. I went to Simone the other night. Jess Largy's a friend, and I think she's very talented on another level. I can never cook as good as Jessica, and she's very kind to us. She lets us use her space when we have pop-ups, so I have to say thank you. She lives across the street from Combi, so I see her every day. She loves croissants. And those are like restaurants that I love.
Yeah. But you mentioned about 100 more, and we just had to edit them out.
Yeah, edit them out. Yeah. But otherwise, you know, K-Town, like SGV, all those places are, you could Google and spend the rest of your life just eating that food. And it's the best.
Yeah, SGV
food.
is like the mothership.
Yeah. Oh, Hail Mary's been really good lately. I think the pizza that he's doing is phenomenal. The dough is super flavorful, and the salads are it's great. I ate there with Miles like before he left for Europe, and we had a really, really great meal.
Cool. We ask all of our guests for our last question. Akira, what is your dream cookbook project that you wanna do at some point in your life?
I don't want to do a cookbook.
You have like 600 of them.
Yes, they're here.
You have a shelf of 600 in your house. We're in your house.
There's probably 400 Italian cookbooks, and all of my friends have cookbooks.
That answer doesn't cut it. All right, okay. So let's just say...
I'm going to try to skirt the question, but if you're going to make me answer...
I'm going to make you say something. Like, you love cookbooks.
Katie Parla's doing this cookbook right now, Southern Italian. That would be my dream cookbook, but she's already doing it. So I will say maybe... I don't know. I have no idea. Like,
I think Japan's got like maybe a few other books in that amazing, wonderful, huge.
Sure. I mean, Japan is endless source of inspiration and mastery of cooking that you could probably write a cookbook on. I don't want to write that cookbook, but I would be involved in that cookbook. That would be awesome. I'll go eat the food for that cookbook research. But I think Southern Italy is more where I like my soul associates like how I live my life.
What about like let's just say a Canale cookbook?
A Canale cookbook?
Canale cookbook.
I could do a Canale cookbook. Right. It would be 3 pages long. It would just be our recipe.
Love it.
And that would be it.
New models. Akira, thank you so much for joining the Taste Podcast.
Thank you.
We're joined by Max Falkowitz, producer of Taste Food Questions, which appears on the Taste Daily podcast feed. Listener, you should subscribe to this feed because, you know, Max, it's a great thing. Taste Food Questions, right?
It is a great thing. It's everything that you ever wanted to know that you didn't realize you needed to know.
And I have actually a question for you right now. What exactly is sea urchin, which is oftentimes referred to as uni if you're ordering at a Japanese restaurant?
So I'm really sorry if this ruins sea urchin for you for the rest of your life, because sea urchin anatomy is kind of fascinating. It has what biologists call 5-point symmetry, which like sea stars or certain other like deep sea marine life, there are 5 little petals that consist of the actual lobes of uni inside. We often call uni sea urchin roe. It's not roe. It's the urchin's gonads. It's analogous to their ovaries or testes, and they're right next to the urchin's mouth, which is on the bottom of the creature. It has these 5 little tendrils that it uses to like scrape itself across the ocean floor, and then when you pick it up to scoop out all those
nads.
All those nads, you're picking it up by its butt because it poops out of the top of its shell.
But we prize this food. Come on, anyone who's listened has had uni. But just explain, why is it such a delicacy in our world?
Well, it's that perfect blending of rare and challenging but rewarding flavors, right? So it's urchins are filter feeders. They're eating whatever comes through the ocean floor, and so it picks up all these incredible briny mineral flavors of the ocean. And it also has, like most gonads, a lot of fatty tissue. So it's a really soft, creamy, delicious oyster-like delicacy. And the best sea urchin you'll ever eat is procured by people who are still free diving for it. And there are some amazing women on Jeju Island who are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s who just go free diving for urchin every day, and that's just what they do.
And in America, Santa Barbara is a kind of epicenter, if you will, for sea urchin. Also Hokkaido in Japan. What about the color? I think the color is something that I've seen. Really dark-hued urchin, then it kind of swings more towards the middle-of-the-road orange.
Well, so there's different varieties of urchin, and actually the one in Santa Barbara is an invasive species. So it actually, you're doing environmental good by choosing to eat it. I'm not exactly sure that much about so I know that different colors correspond to different varieties of urchin, but I don't really know how much about it.
I don't know if anyone knows that. It's just like sometimes it looks bloody almost, and sometimes it looks, the lobes look like they're like very tongue-like too, right?
Yeah, for any urchin, you really want to judge it by its freshness, because they like any gonad once removed from any critter, it doesn't last long. So you really want one that feels a little like springy and resilient when you push it in, and doesn't smell like it's gone off in any way. Like they're like shrimp. They really go off if you let them out for more than a couple days.
Max, thanks for answering the question.
Thank you.
The Taste Podcast is hosted by Matt Rodbard and me, Anna Heasel. The show is produced by Gabrielle Lewis, studio recordings by Pat Stango, theme music by Steve Rydell. Interviews are recorded live at Books Are Magic in Cobble Hill, Brooklyn, and at Penguin Random House Studios in Manhattan. Visit Taste online at tastecooking.com. Thanks for listening.